Across much of film history, queer stories existed only between the lines, coded, hidden, or simply left out. That absence shaped how many queer people came to understand themselves and their place in the world. On today's episode of Articulate, I'll talk with Vicci Ho, a film festival consultant and programmer, about what it means to see yourself on the screen and how curators can move representation beyond just visibility towards agency and authorship. Thank you so much for coming in today, Vicci. It's so nice to have you here and to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Hey, you've told me before, I thought this was a good place to start this interview, that the lack of queer representation in the 1990s made it quite hard for you to recognize your own identity.
Yeah.
And I want to ask how that experience shaped the way that you now approach curation and programming.
Yeah, it's the type of thing that you don't really think about until you are asked to think about it. And I was recently just writing about high school, and I was like, I literally never even considered I could be queer because you don't see queer people on TV unless they're a punchline. And I think to me, what I took away from that is to know that it is important for people to see themselves. There are a group of, cis white people see themselves on screen all the time. And, I'm Asian. I think there's more representation coming this way from that angle as well. But I think not only is it important to see yourself on screen, it's kind of important to see positive images of yourself. It's not just if you're a queer kid and all you see are like a gay kid being beat up by jocks or like people being called names, then that's terrible. Like they might grow up thinking, I don't want to be this,
Totally.
So I do think it's changed a lot, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I do think it's important for people to see positive images of themselves.
Totally. I remember growing up myself, actually. I feel like I studied a paper, maybe media studies, when I was in university that looked at the portrayal of transgender characters, and they're often like either portrayed as a prostitute or like a victim of a crime,
Yeah.
like a murder victim or something. And it's a similar, like it's so pigeonholing, for queer people.
Or even like, or you're like a crazy serial killer, like
Yeah, right.
Lambs. Like there's just no positive, it's the bury your gays thing, but it's so much worse for trans people.
Totally, yeah. When you're curating a festival or a program, Vicci, what does authentic representation mean to you?
I think it means that hopefully that people in that community believe that, oh yes, look, I understand this, because sometimes you do get maybe some straight filmmaker trying to make queer movies and all the queers are like, wait, what? Like we don't do this. Or like, same thing as like portraying Asian communities. If you have a basic understanding of it, I think it's really obvious to the people in that community. And so I think for me, it's important to see, do other, like, to the people who were represented, believe they are represented rather than this token, like generic, or like, oh, that person's on screen for 5 seconds and then you never see them again.
Definitely. Our core question today, Vicci, is what does it mean to see yourself or to not see yourself on the screen? How would you answer that one?
I think it's about validation, isn't it? It's just to, if you could see yourself, or at least a version or some aspect of yourself on screen, you kind of maybe think, oh, I'm not a weirdo, or there's nothing wrong with me. And I do think that is really important. Like, I don't think that should be everything, because I think there's more nuance to that. But I do think it is important, especially for minority groups who don't usually see themselves on screen, to be able to look at this and say, oh, I am represented, and oh, I'm not a terrible person, or oh, they're not gonna kill me, which happened for a long time. It's like the fate of all these minority characters. But I do think that is changing, and I do think it's really important for kids, or for just people who might never see themselves on screen, to be able to look and say, oh, I recognize this, and so I'm not alone.
Those moments where you do see you're maybe yourself in a character really stick with you as well.
Yeah.
I have so many memories of, not so many, maybe that's an overstatement, but yeah, I can think of a few, where you feel seen. But I want to talk about you talked about the change there happening, because I want to get into this a little bit more, because there has been a surge in queer storytelling recently in the last 10 years. But do you think more representation automatically means better representation? Obviously, I'm just thinking about, the difference between films that are queer in nature versus queer in their marketing, for example.
Queerbaiting?
Yeah, queer baiting,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes, I do. I think that, there's still so much to do. I think if we could talk about like queer or just LGBT mainstream things that we see, it's mostly still cis people, it's mostly still white characters, it's mostly still rich, upper middle class white characters in WeHo. And I was like, but that is a tiny segment of the queer community, but that's all we see. So why don't we see more stories about, for example, trans characters that are not just there to be someone's best friend? We get a lot of those, but that's not enough. And I do think that, and let's not even talk about like the straight filmmakers. Like, what is the Coen brother doing with his?
Oh, I don't know.
This, like, he made a bunch of films. This one's called like with Margaret Qualley, and they're all technically queer, but it's very straight queer. And I'm like, what are we
like
doing?
straight interpretation of queer.
It's just she's like supposedly queer, and she makes up with a girl, but it doesn't really do anything. It serves no purpose. And he's made 2 of these, and I'm very confused. I'm like, what is your? I think it's Joel. It's one of them.
One of
it's
them.
It's not both of them. It's one of them.
It's like she kissed a girl. She's queer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
No.
So that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. It's like, why is this person even? It doesn't serve anything.
Totally.
Besides just being, oh, she likes girls and she makes up with like Aubrey Plaza or something. I mean, I would see it, but you gotta like give us more than just this token, seeming a little exploitative, it even feels, to be honest. So there's still a lot of that, unfortunately. But I do think, I really do hope to see more stories that are maybe just a little bit less white, a little bit less cis, because we get a lot of that. And maybe more women, because there's not a lot of those either.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you think, Vicci, that we ask queer artists to explain or justify their work in ways that society doesn't ask of straight artists or filmmakers?
I honestly, maybe a little less so than before, but I still think there are, what I always come back to is I feel like sometimes queer filmmakers are asked to justify, why is there so much sex in your film? Why is this so explicit? But you never really ask, like, a lot of these, like, no one asks someone to justify why John Wick is so violent. But you get a lot of that, and people love it. And I do think there is a bit of double standards, but I feel like it's a sex thing. And sometimes I feel like it's a problem that a lot of minority creators have to think about, is that if we say something that shows us in a bad light, because, we're people, like, there are great queer people, and there might be people who are not very nice, and they would be asked to say, oh, but if you portray this person like an asshole, it's going to make the whole community look bad, and we have to defend ourselves. And I think that's unfair, because we should be allowed to tell we should be allowed to be assholes. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, queer people are complex like everybody else,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're three-dimensional.
Yes, exactly. We're not like this, we're not there to look good for the community. But I do think sometimes people get nervous and they tiptoe around that and they don't want to, portray something that could be used by someone else to, attack our community. So it's
Mm,
hard. But
yeah.
that should not be our problem.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Um, do you think, Vicky, there's such a thing as queer curation? And yeah, if so, what would that look like beyond just programming content that is queer?
I think camp probably plays a large part in it. Like I always think if you like I would argue if you show something that is not like actually queer, like Wicked is technically queer, right?
Yeah.
Like, something that's a little bit camp or something that have a sensibility that the queer community understands. Um, but I mean, I think Traders is kind of camp.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Ellen winning traders is totally
exactly.
Kim.
And so I mean, part of me always wants to have like a sing along or dress up sing along or something, but not necessarily of the Rocky Horror because that's boring. But like something a little bit sillier. Yeah, so I do think there is a sensibility that is queer. A lot of reality TV I find very queer. Um, I would like to be able to show that at a film festival, even though I understand why I can't.
Yeah, gig Drag Race at a film festival.
Oh my
Someone
god, that would be
please.
so great.
Drag Race the movie. Someone needs to make that movie.
Someone needs to make a follow up to are they making a follow up to Priscilla?
I don't know, are they?
Maybe they are. I might have seen something about Terrence Stamp filming something before.
Oh, with the original actors.
Maybe?
Oh,
I'm not sure, but we could use another one, I feel like.
I feel like we could use another one, but also with such a legacy film like that, you also have to be careful not to fumble the ball.
Yeah.
You know? It's like there's a lot riding on this.
Yeah.
A lot of
Because
people will be watching.
and people would not be kind if they
No,
mess it up.
totally. Also on curation,
Mm.
Vicky, I wanted to ask, have you ever found yourself in a tension with an institution or even an audience about what you felt or believed needed to be shown in some sort of program?
I think it's less people who take issue with what is shown, thankfully. And I think a lot of it is more about just the economics of it, unfortunately, because there's always a tension about most arts organizations, to be honest, are struggling with funding right now. And so to them, they might consider if you want to show a film that the audience don't really feel like watching, or it might be a small audience, they might hesitate and say, well, we're going to lose money if we show this, and we can't get the support we need to make sure everyone could see it. And I do think generally there's a barrier to, I do think there are groups who just don't really come out to these major events, and it's hard to reach them. And so I do think part of it is more just, I wish there was more institutional support to get, for example, for, say, maybe for queer kids who can't afford to come to a film festival to come and watch a movie, or for, a small Asian community that don't really read English newspapers to know that the film is playing. But a lot of the times, unfortunately, there's just no money to get the word to them or make it free for them. So it's more that, I feel, which I hope that would change one day, but it's hard. I understand it's hard.
Yeah, we can hope. We can always hope, right? I want to loop back to something you said earlier, actually, and just on tokenism more generally in programming. I wanted to ask what changes you might have seen, Vicky, in how festivals approach queer work over the years, and if there's anything that still frustrates you about the process or processes.
I think that, as we talked about, the more mainstream queer films are still more likely to get more play because they'll attract a bigger audience. Like if Luca has a new film, he's probably
It'll
gonna
do
get
well,
play.
yeah.
And people will show up. But I have recently worked for a film festival where we wanted to make sure that the film really speaks to the community, and so they actually get a sensitivity screener for that community to just watch the film and say, what do you think? Is there something, a flag that we didn't catch but you would, just to make sure that like we are not shortchanging that community. And I really like that approach. I'm glad they had it.
Yeah.
And I wish more festivals would do it, because I think it's valuable, because we can't possibly know every community. And so I think if you know that you might have a blind spot, it's good to admit that and, get the people who would understand to take a look.
Yeah, that feels like a really sensible and mature step, to just like, take it to people who, are from that community, to watch it, to look at it, to respond to it,
Yeah.
before you screen it to
and
thousands of people.
Have absolutely, like, sometimes says something, I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. I wasn't aware. So I do think it's really valuable.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Was there a film, Vicci, that first made you feel seen, and what was it?
Can I say a TV show?
Yeah, of course.
Buffy.
Oh, Buffy.
Yeah, so
I love Buffy.
I was just thinking about how
Sarah Michelle.
Yeah, and they had the whole storyline where Willow realized she's queer.
Yes.
And I mean, I understand Buffy has a very complicated legacy. I get that. And I struggle with it every day because I love that show. But it was such a big deal for one of the main characters. I think it came out like 2000,
early
2001,
2000s, yeah.
when she came out, and she had the whole thing about she had to have a conversation with Buffy, like trying to come out to her. And as a 19 and 20-year-old saying that in that period, it was such a big deal, because I was like, oh my God, like I just had a really scary conversation. Like, my friends were fine, but at the time you didn't know they'll be fine.
Totally.
So I was like, I get it.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Those are also such beautiful moments when it's maybe a little bit unexpected,
Yeah.
And also that is super progressive, like credit where credit's due. And maybe early 2000s, maybe there was a few people already coming out on screen, but still not that many.
Yeah, and not usually a main character.
No.
And then they, and then she stayed queer until the show ended. I mean, she turned evil and everything. Spoilers, but
we don't need to go into
that. But yeah, but that was a big deal for me at the time.
Yeah, I love that. What about I also want to ask penultimately, Vicci. This is a really tricky question, but do you think visibility is enough, or do we need to move towards something deeper? I'm thinking agency, or more towards an authorship model.
I think visibility is useful, but I definitely do not think it's enough. As I said, like, visibility at the moment is still mostly, we could talk about the hierarchy of queer community. It's the top, it's the white gay man that gets most of the screen time. And I do think there are so many more stories to be told. And let's, not forget that within the queer community, some cis people are very terrible to trans people. Like, we are attacking our own community, which I can't even get into it right now. But I do think to give more voices to people who, usually do not have a voice is so important. I think at the moment, we have Ryan Murphy, like,
oh
he's
God,
not the quota, like, let someone else have some time. And I would love to see more money being given to younger, non-white, maybe non-cis creators to tell their stories, because it's just we don't really get any of that. It's still so few and far between, and it's not enough, and there should be more.
Yeah. And I hope everyone else listening to this
the people with
can
money,
do
please
this.
give it to them.
I think just lastly, Vicci, you might have brought an object in from your creative life to share with us today. Okay. What is it? And can you tell us the story behind it?
Okay, so I'm a curator, so I don't really make anything. So I brought a DVD in.
What is the DVD?
This is a film called Brand Upon the Brain by Guy Madden.
I've never heard of this
It's
film.
a
What is it about?
Canadian guy. It's kind of I can't even tell you. It's kind of about himself, but not really. It's filmed. Speaking of camp, it's filmed like a silent film,
Okay.
and it's very weird. And this DVD came from a friend who was the producer, passed away in like 2009, and
Wow.
basically we rated after he passed, we spread his DVDs around. But so part of me is like physical media matters, and I'm a curator, so I like to keep films I liked. And I think this film really spoke to me in just how weird it was and inventive. And they do now, back then, like they would do live screenings with an orchestra, like a silent film. I
Oh,
thought it
cool.
was really weird.
Oh,
Yeah. And he's also made a film called My Winnipeg, which
My
I think
Winnipeg.
did a little bit better than this one. But this one is amazing.
The cover, there's a lot happening on the cover. It's like the evil eye. We have kind of like old Hollywood starlet. We have a shadowy figure. We have the sun kind of coming out from the eye.
Yeah.
There's already a lot just from the cover.
It's, yeah. So part of this is physical media, and this film is amazing.
Okay, I'll have to borrow that maybe one time from
One
the
day,
library.
yeah, if you could find it. Otherwise you could call me.
I'll hit you
I'll
up.
copy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in today, Vicci.
Thanks for having me.
Representation might begin with what we see, but as Vicci reminds us, it's sustained by who's behind the camera and who gets to decide what stories are told. I'm André Chumko, and thanks for joining me on Articulate. For more in-depth culture interviews, stream our full episode archive on YouTube, Spotify, or at thepost.co.nz/articulate. I'll see you next time.